Good afternoon. Welcome to a KSAT live stream here. I'm Myra Arthur alongside Dylan Collier. We are moments away from getting an update from law enforcement on the Suzanne Simpson case. She is the woman missing from Olmos Park, has not been seen now in more than a month. And just yesterday, her husband, Brad Simpson, was charged with her murder. We're going to take you to that press conference as soon as it begins at the Olmos Park Police Department. It looks like there is somebody, I'm told, walking up to the podium to begin giving us this update. Let's listen in here, and then we'll come back on the other side, give you a recap, and also the very latest updates that we have.
Behind me, I want to identify everybody who's here at the press conference. My name is Dylan. They'll probably take no questions. So with us today, we'll have Chief Villegas, Lieutenant Reeves, Sergeant Campbell with the Olmos Police Department, Olmos Park Police Department. We also have Mayor Aaron Harrison, City Manager Mike Pedro, Regional Director Vincent Luciano, CID Major Ronald Sines, Texas Ranger Perez, all from the Texas Department of Public Safety, FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Evan Pagoda, Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez, and Assistant Bexar County District Attorney Millie Powers and Casey Sandoval. So I will turn it over to the Chief.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, the Olmos Park Police Department, along with the Texas Rangers, have charged Brad Chandler Simpson with murder in the death of his wife, Suzanne Clark Simpson. We realize that this doesn't bring closure to Suzanne's family, but we hope it will allow them to enter the next phase of their grieving process with more clarity. We'd like to thank Suzanne's family for their support and strength throughout this investigation. They are asking for respect of their privacy, especially for the minor children. There are also many agencies that have helped us in this investigation, and we offer them our sincerest gratitude. This thorough and tireless investigation has been conducted in efforts to find justice for Suzanne and her family. We want to recognize the Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez at his office for their advice and support with the complexities of this investigation. They now begin their work on the prosecution phase of this case. We also want a special thank you to the Department of Public Safety and the Texas Rangers who have worked tirelessly with us, and we thank you very much, along with all the support from the citizens that we've had. We'd like to thank the family and the public, and we want them to know that the search for Suzanne is still ongoing. The Simpson family provided us with this message today to read, so I'll introduce Mr. Clark Simpson.
Thank you, Chief. It's always important to do what is right, and especially when it is most difficult. The situation is heartbreaking for us, but it brings some peace to our family, knowing that the authorities have gathered enough evidence to move forward with charges. This helps us come to terms with the reality that Suzanne is no longer with us, allowing us to continue the difficult process of grieving and focus on rebuilding our lives for the sake of the children and our extended family. We remain deeply appreciative of the Olmos Park Police Department, the Texas Rangers, Texas DPS, and all assisting law enforcement agencies involved in their dedication and determination to help us find Suzanne. We're also incredibly grateful for the support of our amazing, loving community, and for everyone who has reached out, supported us, and kept us in their prayers. It is our sincere hope and prayer that Brad will find the compassion and courage to end his family's suffering by cooperating with the authorities to help us find his wife. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll have Lieutenant Ruiz from the Olmos Park Police Department reiterate some of this in Spanish for you.
Hola. Ayer junto con los Texas Rangers de Texas acusamos a Brad Chandler Simpson de asesinato por la muerte de su esposa.
All right, you just heard there from the chief of police for the Olmos Park Police Department, as well as Barton Simpson. That is Brad Simpson's brother. Of course, Brad being Suzanne's wife. I believe that's the first time that we have seen Barton Simpson on camera addressing this. He's put out a lot of statements over the past couple of weeks on social media, things in writing, but that's the first time we have heard him publicly address this case. We'll get to that in just a second, but as far as the update we heard from the chief of police, there wasn't much new that came out of that. We did hear, of course, about the charge of murder, which we knew yesterday for Brad. What did you get from that?
The chief also confirmed that the search for Suzanne is still ongoing. So her remains, her body have not been found at this point. Barton Simpson spoke briefly and confirmed what we'd been hearing the last few weeks, that Brad continues to not cooperate with law enforcement. He said he hopes his brother finds the, quote, compassion and courage, end quote, to cooperate with investigators as they attempt to search for physical evidence, something that will essentially make this murder charge stick if and when it goes to trial.
And yesterday, with that murder charge, you just saw that graphic there that shows the new bonds totaling what Brad Simpson is facing, $5 million for those new charges. He's been in jail for weeks now, but yesterday was the first time that he was charged in direct connection with Suzanne's disappearance. And that murder charge is the first time that we have seen law enforcement outwardly acknowledge they believe she was killed.
Right. There was some sort of coded language when they were searching at the landfill in southeast Bexar County. They had hoped to find remains. The chief spoke a few times and in messages to the city of Olmos Park about bringing closure to this incident, and that's usually not the language you use when you're discussing a potential search for a missing person, rather a search for remains and physical evidence of a crime taking place.
Yeah, and this yesterday, what you were out here witnessing all of this. Talk about what took place in this video yesterday.
So we were told that investigators were in the process of getting a murder warrant signed to arrest Brad Simpson, and that they were going to give him one more chance to confess to the crime, and that required DPS, Olmos Park Police, and a member of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office Fugitive Apprehension Unit. They actually removed Simpson from the jail, left about 1:15 in the afternoon, went to a DPS station, and then less than 2 hours later, the same convoy returned with Simpson. He was taken into the Sally Port, which is the start of the secure facility at the south end of the jail, and within a couple of minutes of them arriving back at the jail, he was officially charged with murder, and those records, the record of his arrest then was posted publicly.
As we keep talking about these latest developments, I want to talk to our live stream producer, Landon, really quickly. If you hear questions being asked and we need to dip back into that press conference to gather some of that information, I want to make sure that we do that. So just keep me, okay, they are asking questions now. All right, let's go back to the Olmos Park Police Department, where DPS now is taking some questions from reporters.
What kind of information did the public come forward with that would help your investigation?
I don't have that either. I do know that some people had reached out to the Olmos Park PD and to the Rangers with some information, but I don't have any specific information from the public.
You know, several people in our newsroom got several text messages.
Go ahead.
Is there any possible
contact with his children?
I'm sorry?
Has Brad Simpson had contact with his children?
Not that I know of.
So I know we got several texts earlier this week asking for our emails, knowing that something was coming this Thursday, and Brad Simpson was charged with murder on Thursday. Did you guys know that you were going to charge him with murder when, you know, we were getting that heads up that we were going to get information on Tuesday?
So I got that information just like everybody else. I think when they came up with enough evidence and information to take it to the DA's office, they did so this week, and that's why we're meeting today. Had it been earlier, then we probably would have had a press conference earlier.
Is there anything you can tell us about warrants and technology? How long does it normally take to get the information from a phone, or you guys released that picture of Brad's truck to us? Have you found anything on the GPS of that truck that helped?
I don't have any information on that.
Have you done any more searches since the landfill?
I do know that they continue to search, and I can't give you the areas, but yes, they have searched other locations.
How confident are you all that you will find Suzanne's body?
I know that they're not going to stop searching, so.
So at this point, you're still accepting tips from the public for that search?
Yeah, and we had put out the phone number information to the Olmos Park PD, so if anybody has any additional information, feel free to contact the department.
Is Brad Simpson asking for anything in exchange for cooperation
I
here?
have no information on that.
So at this point the investigation, so yo Gonzalo was here, this attorney's officer, Joe Gonzalo was here. So you're saying that the case is already in the hands of the DA, even when? So he's going to start.
They're going to start working on their part of the prosecution. So once he was charged with murder, that information is presented to the DA. So now they begin their part of the investigation and the prosecution phase.
Even when there's an investigation going on, still.
As we still search for Suzanne and anything comes up, like I said, we don't just stop the investigation once it hit the DA's office if any additional information comes up. But as of right now, he's been charged and the DA's taking their part in the process.
How rare is it to charge someone with murder without having a body? What does it take to do that?
Enough information for the DA to take it.
Are there nonprofits still involved in the search?
Not that I know of. Two more. I'm Sergeant Dion Cockrell, PI with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Last name Cockrell.
The first name?
Dion, D-E-O-N.
Why is it important that the Texas Rangers were brought in on this?
Well, I think it's such a big case, and the Olmos Park PD asked for their assistance, and as a state agency, we assist all local and other agencies.
All right, that's a sergeant there from the Texas Department of Public Safety taking reporter follow-up questions after that briefing from the Olmos Park police chief. Again, we did learn today that, of course, Suzanne is still missing. The search for her is continuing. And after that charge yesterday with Brad Simpson now facing a murder charge for her death, something else has happened today as far as his business associate is concerned. He's been in jail on charges of tampering with evidence in connection to this case, and he's now posted bond.
He has posted bond on both charges, and at last check was being outfitted with a GPS monitor. As far as we can tell, this is the first time he had ever been at the Bexar County Jail, and that process of being booked and then eventually released takes a little longer if you're not a person who has been in their custody before. So at last check, he had posted bond, was being outfitted for a GPS monitor. That can take anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. They have a new court system, Odyssey, that they moved to several months ago. That tends to delay releases. So maybe this afternoon, potentially early evening, James Cotter will be free on house arrest with a GPS monitor and will be leaving the Bexar County Jail.
So I know that we were asking some questions yesterday as we saw Cotter's bond dramatically decrease, and then we saw the charge for Simpson, his bond increase. Do we know yet if there is any connection between those two?
I have not heard anything that Cotter is cooperating with law enforcement and is assisting with their investigation of his longtime friend and business associate. You look at the timing, though. This was a request for a bond reduction that was made in October. They had an afternoon hearing. They reset it so that a member of Cotter's family could come and testify about whatever financial means they had to procure his release. That didn't take place. It was reset again, and then sort of out of nowhere in the middle of the day yesterday, an hour before Simpson was taken from the jail to be questioned again, Cotter gets the bond reduction by 90% down to $100,000, which he has been able to pay at this point and is on the precipice of being released from jail. So without hearing from law enforcement, we couldn't confirm that he's essentially flipped on Simpson or is cooperating in any way, but I think it would be silly to not look at the timeline of how things played out yesterday.
Yeah, the timing raises a whole lot of questions that we're still trying to get the answers to. We're going to continue giving you updates about this case, walk you through the very latest developments, as well as what we heard from Barton Simpson. That is Brad Simpson's brother. This is the first time today we have heard him on camera addressing the latest on this case. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. updates. We just got a briefing from Olmos Park Police as well as DPS. Dylan Collier here, and we're going to talk about a 30-day timeline that is now in place in this case. I want you to explain that in just a minute. I want to go back to the police department, though, where our Daniela Ibarra is standing by. Daniela, you just were there in person hearing from Olmos Park Police and DPS. Anything that really stood out to you? We had to kind of dip out of the DPS briefing there with Sergeant Cockrell. What's the thing that you really feel like is the highlight?
The fact that they didn't answer any of our questions, specifically the Olmos Park Police Chief didn't answer any of our questions. Before the press conference started, we got told that we weren't going to be able to ask questions, but of course we're journalists, we have to ask questions, and there's so much attention on this case. We don't have a lot of answers to things, so one of the things that I asked the police chief is, how is Brad Simpson cooperating? He didn't answer that. It was also notable that the family members were here, like you mentioned, Barton Simpson, he talked, he got emotional about this case when he was making statements up here. And District Attorney Joe Gonzalez was also here. He didn't make any statements. He didn't answer any questions. But one thing that the DPS Sergeant Deon Cockrell did tell us is that they are still continuing to look for Suzanne. A reporter asked him, well, have you guys been looking in other spots since those landfill searches? And they said, yes, they've been actively looking, but of course they still have not found her. And that's one thing that we're going to wait to see where and when they do that. But they did say that they believe she is in the Bandera area.
In the Bandera area. Okay, so, you know, that was the second location that they really searched after the home out in the area right outside.
Well, that was Bernie. As far as I can remember, I don't think they've been
in Bandera.
To Bandera to search.
No.
I know they visited Bandera because he has a family ranch up there, but I don't recall any formal law enforcement searches in the Bandera area.
Okay, so Daniela, they said that is where they believe her remains are located, somewhere in the Bandera area.
Yeah, that's what they stated up here when they were asked about it.
Okay, so, and you explained the connection to Bandera there in that original arrest affidavit for Brad Simpson. Law enforcement explained he had told them he had gone there, and it was that very cryptic. He was separating himself from the family. Their family has a ranch there. He, I believe, has some property out there as well that's kind of all connected, so that would be the connection there. And speaking of the family, you talked about Barton Simpson, him getting emotional, and the first thing he said is what stuck with me. It is always important to do what is right, especially when it is the most difficult. This has to, of course, been an incredibly difficult time for his family, and I'm reading between the lines here, but it sounds like that is speaking to his involvement in speaking with law enforcement and talking about his brother's potential involvement in this case.
Right.
What else did he say? What did Barton say that really stood out to you? Daniela.
I mean, just the fact that, you know, he wants to find Suzanne. That's something I know. I texted him yesterday. He said that was something that was super important to him. And that's one thing, like the law enforcement officials up here said, is that they said that they will not stop until they find her.
All right, so it sounds like that search is focusing on the Bandera area. Daniela, thanks for being out there and giving us that update. Dylan, I want to ask you about what I alluded to earlier, this 30-day clock, essentially, that is tied to this case. What's the significance of that?
So the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure allows a prosecutor, someone who represents the state's interest in a criminal case, to file to have a warrant sealed. It's usually done in search warrants. It's rarely done at the state level, though. You see it a lot in federal criminal cases. You hear about a warrant was just unsealed. But in this case, this is now the second time since early October that law enforcement has asked and been granted a request to seal a warrant. The first one was the search at the landfill in southeast Bexar County that, as far as we can tell, did not turn up any tangible evidence in this case. And then the murder warrant itself for Brad Simpson, a judge agreed to seal it for 30 days. There is a section of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure that allows the prosecutor to go back within those 30 days and ask for another 30-day extension. So essentially, if physical evidence, if Suzanne's remains, or what investigators need to make the murder charge stick, They're now on a clock of 60 days to do so. Before, this becomes a situation where a defense attorney for Simpson can say, let's go to trial, show us the body. Do you not have a body? We ask that the state dismiss the case or that the judge throw it out.
Yeah, and we have talked with former prosecutors about that, about prosecuting a case in which there is no body. It's not impossible. It's been done, but it's incredibly difficult to do.
I do not see it happening here in Bexar County. Just from
with what you know,
being in this market for as long as I have, you can always draw comparisons between this case and the Andreen McDonald case, and that was a situation where they waited to find her remains before charging Andre, the husband, with murder instead of just trying to conceal evidence, and sort of the lesser charges that you saw filed against Brad.
Yeah. Okay, so now, the very latest update is the police chief from Olmos Park really acknowledging publicly now the murder charge against Brad today, saying that they have not found Suzanne. They are continuing to look, and perhaps that biggest nugget that Danielle gave us is law enforcement believes she is somewhere in the Bandera area.
Yep.
So we're going to continue to stay on top of this. We have a timeline on our website that walks you through this entire case. Suzanne was last seen October 6th in the Olmos Park area, reported missing the 7th. Brad Simpson was arrested on the 9th. All of these developments have come, in some cases, rapid fire over the last 24 hours. So we're going to wrap this up here, and then, of course, we'll keep you updated on ksat.com. Dylan, thanks for your insight,
No
as
problem.
always. Check out ksat.com, and we'll see you at 5 and 6 o'clock.